Here we go. Hopefully you guys are seeing my screen there. I'm going to go ahead and get going here. Just a kind of a heads up right before I start up, we'll probably take a break right around the 1 o'clock time. We'll take about a 10-minute break. So just kind of a heads up. Um, Kick back. I don't expect you guys to have anything open on your end. Maybe have some notes. Pen and paper is always good. I always like to, I'll give you a heads up on notes. But ultimately, thank you again for having me. It's very exciting to be here. It's very exciting to talk about backup and recovery, something I've had to deal with. Um, Not a lot, but enough to make me know that it's not the most fun thing you want to deal with, especially the recovery part. That can be a very, very, very stressful thing. Uh, Before we get started, let me see here. Let me just kind of talk a little bit about some of the goals for today's lesson. Um, I hope you guys understand the really the importance of data protection and some of the strategies that we can take to protect our data. It may not be something that's front and center for you right now. Maybe not even with your personal data. Hopefully, we can change that after today. Um, we'll go over some things about backup media, the hardware and software side of things. Like, where do we save our backups? What is this new thing called the cloud? So we'll learn a little bit about the backup media, some software, hardware, all that stuff. And lastly, to end the session after we take a little break here halfway through, guys, we'll talk about and explore some of the best practices for disposing data. Sometimes just moving things over to the recycling bin doesn't actually delete things. Data can stay in some places for a long time. I meant to grab a hard drive. I do have a portable hard drive here, but data can hang out and somewhere for quite a long time there. So real quick, in introduction, I always like to start and introduce, you know, this concept by sharing a quick story. And I found a good picture to kind of start this off. It's something that we all, well, I don't know if we all recognize this. To be honest, I actually didn't watch a lot of the Toy Story movies until we started having kids, and now we're really catching up on the Toy Story movies. And but did you know, right? Did you know that Toy Story 2 was almost lost way back in the day? And I guess when I say way back in the day, this was 1998. A small little snafu with the server. Some IT folks deleted some files. The folks working on the production files started noticing. I think the story goes they first started noticing that Woody's hat had gone away in the production files. So they started scrambling. Next thing you know, everything else started going away. The server was deleting files. They had no idea what to do. They unplugged everything. Essentially, they had lost like 90% of their work for, a multi-million dollar production. Long story short, they had to restore from a backup that a worker had on their home computer. A one of the employees was on maternity leave and she had kept some files on her own computer. So they had to restore the entire Toy Story project Toy Story 2 project that they were working. So just some tidbit, just some of the importance of backup and recovery. Now this was in the early, I always call it the earlier days of computing, 1998. This was kind of an early time in computing. So I'll kind of reference that as we go. As we know, they were able to back things up. Toy Story 2 came out, and now I think we're at Toy Story 5 or 6 now. So, but one of those lessons learned, and we'll talk about some of the things that maybe they should have done way back in the day. Kind of doing some forensics after the fact, they found that they didn't have a backup system in place. It was there, but it wasn't working. Um, they also they didn't, you don't really delete files. There's no reason to delete files anymore. So they were going through and just deleting files, and they really shouldn't have been doing that. So, um, yeah, let me jump back over. Let me switch back over here to the presentation. So again, welcome. Um, Again, I'll start off by asking everybody just a quick little question to ponder. And maybe so raise your hand there on your end. I know I might not be able to see it, and you might be able to react in the Zoom meeting there, but raise your hand if you have never ever backed up your files. So I know it's a tough question to ask. It's a very serious question. It's something that's probably different I always ask it when I'm in a room with people, and I always kind of stare everybody down like, be serious now. And I think we're all guilty of it, right? I mean, I'm thinking everybody's probably raising your hand. You're probably thinking, I don't back up my pictures, and I probably should have backed up that assignment that I did somewhere else. Um, but again, it's all something that we need to be doing, myself included. Somebody who's worked in IT for over 20 years, I'm still guilty of it as well. Backing up things is very important. Why do we need to do this backup? Well, one, data protection. We need to. I'm sorry, guys. My mouse. Sorry, just my mouse kind of went away there. It's kind of disappeared. So data protection. Backing up our stuff protects us from the unthinkable. Sometime, things like fires happen. Things like earthquakes happen. Floods. Here in the States, we've been dealing with floods a lot. So something would happen if I have everything in my office computer. That could be very bad. Uh, which goes then along kind of with disaster recovery. We're backing things up just in case and to ultimately minimize that downtime. I'm not sure if anyone has ever worked for an organization where things have gone down and you're just kind of looking around on what to do. Um, for those that are up in the higher level, they're looking at the bottom line, and that is costing a lot of money. Ultimately, we need to back up data for the long-term retention of our data. If we're an organization or a business, we need to we need to be thinking about the future. So we're backing up our data really just for our own benefit of our, keeping the data 20 years down the road. Data versioning is something we also don't really think about until we really need it. But sometimes we need to go back to a version from last Monday or maybe a month ago. So backing up software helps us with the versioning. Actually, I saw my wife have to deal with this here recently. She was working on some Excel sheets and budgets, and numbers got really messed up, and she realized things had happened from Tuesday on. Well, you can use a version. Let me go back and get the Monday version and start over. Um, I used to experience that in web design. You take a design one way with web design, and the client doesn't like it. It happens all the time. Well, it's also really nice to just go back to the original version I was starting with and maybe take another direction. So we don't think about the version, the versioning benefits of things. And then lastly, is a vocabulary word I would love everybody to kind of take from today. And maybe you already know it, but I see this word a lot: scalability. We see this word a lot in the IT world. We see this word a lot in the business world. But scalability, that is the ability for our business to grow. So we do a lot of backups to help us with our business's ability to grow in volumes. Um, we may have 1,000 customers now. Wouldn't it be nice if we had 1 million customers tomorrow? So we need to do these backups just in case that really, really good thing happens for our business. So some data safety. So backup and recovery are critically important for data safety. Just some of the fundamentals that ensure, and here's some more vocabularies: availability, integrity, and security. Just those are buzzwords that are very big in the cybersecurity world and the networking world too. So make sure available. We need that data has to be available. That data, we need to know that data is what we think it is. That's the integrity side of things. And then the security, is that data protected? So backing up our data protects us against that data loss. It gives us business continuity. In the event of some sort of failure, we can get back up and running. Because remember, the finance folks in the finance office, they're thinking every minute that we're not doing something, that is costing money. So the continuity, a big one that is coming up now, and we see this one: ransomware, cyber attacks on our data integrity. If my data is backed up and I am a victim of a ransomware attack, well, it's really a no big deal situation for my business. I have my data backed up. My data isn't locked and being held for ransom. Um, Ransomware is where somebody takes your computer and locks it down, and you have to pay that ransom to kind of get it unlocked. And well, you may or may not get it unlocked either. So backing up, it protects our data integrity. Is this the data that we expect it to be, or has it been changed? Backing up helps us keep in compliance. So yes, things like HIPAA in the healthcare world that we have, there's things that we need to do. If we're taking credit card payments, we have to abide by many of these laws. We have to save this data. So uh, complying to different laws out there, data redundancy. So having a backup just kind of offers that another what if, and minimizes, well, hey, what happens if we do lose this one? Well, we've got another copy of it over there on another server. So redundancy, we coming from the word redundant, having two copies of something or more. I'll talk about that here in a little bit, or more. Um, Long-term archiving, sometimes we don't just need it for now. Maybe what we want to go back a couple years. So we need to have long-term storage as things change, and we've seen this many times before. As we migrate our data and upgrade, what happens when we need to move our data from one server to the cloud someday, or from one cloud location to a larger cloud location another day? Having these data backups makes this a lot easier, well, and a lot less stressful as well. When I'm moving a lot of this data, if something happens, well, I've still got many copies of this data around. As I'll kind of go through this, I don't want to spend a lot here. Growth and management, again, the peace of mind. I guess I've served in those sysadmin roles and higher level roles where it helps knowing that there's many copies of the data floating around the organization. Human errors happen. I mean, I think that's just something that we're always going to deal with, even with AI around helping us. Um, Safety and security, making sure our data stays safe. Um, and you know, again, many reasons. Kind of walk back there. Sorry, guys. Many reasons. It's critically important to do that there. So, cost of ransomware attacks. This is a rising thing that we really need to worry about, especially here in the past, I would say 5 years. And coming from somebody who has a Cisco background, and has kind of been working a little in cybersecurity, from my perspective, I can definitely, I would share with all of you, things really got crazy when ransomware insurance came out. And let me explain that. So, ransomware is where somebody installs something on your computer that scrambles the data, and the the key that scrambles the data, they take that key and they kind of say, well, hey, we've scrambled your data, and if you want it back, here's the key, and you need to pay us. Well, the big problem that came out was with ransomware insurance. Now a company buys ransomware insurance. If they get victim of ransomware, the insurance just pays it. So we started seeing this large influx of we call them bad actors, trying to take advantage of ransomware insurance. They knew that if they could get somebody the victim of ransomware, it was almost going to be a guaranteed payday because the insurance company was going to pay for it. The company was not going to pay it. The insurance was going to pay for it. So again, we started seeing this really big rise in ransomware. Um, on the IT side of things, for us to protect us against ransomware, we just need to have backups. If we get ransomware on the server that has all of our data, that is very bad. If we get ransomware on a server that has some data, but we have many other backups, then it's bad, but it's not as bad. We can recover from that and move on and reduce our downtime. So again, there's that ransomware payment that's the really big one. Um, Now there's more technologies that are coming out there. You know, we see storage that claims to be ransomware proof, or computers. I've seen some Dell computers saying they're ransomware proof computers. So um, there's been a lot of reputational damage caused by this, and ultimately a very big loss in revenue. I mean, this can cost companies in upwards into the millions of dollars. So data leaks, and yes, there's a video here that, well, actually, I think we'll share here with you guys in a little bit. I won't play it here. Data leaks is something we all need to worry about. I think we've all, I know, I think if I would say, hey, who has been victim of a data leak, we should all raise our hands. I think coming from somebody who's done cybersecurity, I can tell you that our data has been leaked out so many times over the past 20 years, starting all the way back to there was a big Yahoo breach way back in the day. And then it's just kind of gotten worse. Target, Chase, Equifax, all these big names. It's almost like if you've to get away from it, you've had to have lived out in the mountains somewhere and just never done anything, never made an online purchase. So I feel like all of us have probably been victim of some sort of data breach. And again, on average, data breaches are, I've got some figures here, cost the United States in 2023 $9.48 million. Again, this is probably just going to, I mean, I wouldn't doubt that it's even more right now, and it's only going to keep going up and up as we keep going. Um, a lot of it backing up our data, investing in cybersecurity, doing things to protect ourselves um, from things like this that can happen. Next slide here, guys. I think been going for like 20 minutes or so, guys. So I just kind of shake it out here, kind of take a quick little break, a little breather here, but a little discussion question for everybody. So, how much information do you rely on your phone to store? Oh boy, there's another one of those. Let's get real serious questions. Be honest here. And what would happen if all the data on your phone right now, all the data on your phone is suddenly lost? Guys, what? I don't know what. And let me see. We would maybe jump into the live chat, guys. I think where we would do that. So I'm gonna grab a quick drink here, guys, real quick while we're. How much information do you rely on your phone to store? I guess a good question. Think about your best friend. What is their phone number? I know my best friend. I've got him saved right here. I couldn't tell you his phone number. If you were paying me money, I couldn't bring it up because I rely on my phone to remember that for me, to store that for me. Um, that's what it's there for. So guys, what would happen if all the data what happened if all your pictures on your phone were suddenly lost? Yeah, so I see. So I was hoping somebody would jump in. Sebastian, I hope the iPhone has everything saved, right? I think that's what we all like. My iPhone is saving this, right? And then if I get a new one, right, it's just gonna. I think we've all asked the question to the T-Mobile folks, right? It's all gonna. This is gonna transfer, right? This is gonna transfer. So, um, so it looks like so somebody said that they've automatically backed to the cloud. So think they're good, right? And maybe we'll talk about that maybe here in a little bit. And just cause is it okay if it's everything's still in the cloud? Is that sufficient? Does that count as a backup? Mhm. Let's see here, guys. I was just let me just trying to look at it, make sure I'm not missing anything. So yeah, if you could maybe type something into the discussion there. But I think for the most part, guys, just think about how much information you do have like currently on your phone, or maybe even on the device you're on. Maybe you're on a laptop right now or a desktop. Um, how much are you relying on that device just to store that information? In other words, do you have just one copy of something right there? And what would happen if that data was just like what happened? And that happens, especially with this laptop I'm currently on. Hard drives fail all the time. I've seen that for many years. Things fail. What happened if that data would just go away? Um, what would you do there? Yeah. So, okay, so think about it. Guess I'm gonna kind of keep moving here just because I want to make sure we stay kind of on time here. We do have a lot to get through today. I would love to chat and share some of my all the fun stories and everything, but I do want to kind of keep us moving. But again, hopefully you're thinking about, okay, maybe I should start backing up my data. Maybe you've got some pictures that you cherish, that are very important to you, or maybe there's some documents or something that are very important to you. We start thinking about how you would back those up, or if they are getting backed up, or maybe even start thinking about the disaster recovery. What would happen if my laptop died, or if my phone I left it somewhere? Hopefully, you guys have never done that. I've had to help people do that before who have left their phones different places. Um, it's data loss can be very, very, very bad. So a story I do want to I kind of want to share here, and let me see. I think I brought up the that kind of goes along with it. So Microsoft sent out. So hopefully you guys are seeing this on the screen here. Microsoft sent out this letter to everybody after this disaster with the T-Mobile Sidekick. I don't know if you guys. This was. I mean, this was back 2009. So I'm not sure if y'all remember the Sidekick. It was kind of the sideways phone. It was the cool thing there for a while. Let me go back to there. It is right there. Had the keyboard. Think about 2009. That was like pre-iPhone and smartphone days. So this was the cool thing. This was going to be the next big thing coming up. Um, it didn't happen that way. Um, there was a big there was a big failure. So what had happened, and actually, Microsoft had to send out a letter to everybody, um, basically saying, they want to apologize for some of the recent problems with the Sidekick. It was kind of the early days of cloud storage, um, but a lot of the data, see, calendar, notes, photographs, everything that was being stored for these Sidekick devices had gone away. um, Very bad. Can you imagine that now? Imagine if that happened to Apple and they just said, "Oh, hey, y'all, hey, everybody, hey, all the millions of people out there, we had some trouble with the iCloud and your pictures are gone, but we're working on it. We're working on it." Um, Again, data loss. It can be the accidental or unintentional destruction or misplacement of data. So going back to also the story in the beginning with Toy Story 2, some IT technicians back then were going through some files, just trying to clean up the server. They had no idea that they were deleting the in production project files. So it could be accidental, it could be intentional, it could be not paying attention at all. But they happen for various reasons. They could happen. The hard drive could fail. It could be human error, software corruption, someone coming from a network world. There could always be something that happens in the transmission of data as well. So we can use our backups as a recovery, a strategy, strategy to protect ourselves against this. Hopefully, we won't ever get a sidekick incident like that again. Again, that it's ultimately going to hurt reputation. Imagine if that would happen to, say, the iPhone or the Samsung phone. So data safety. So backup and recovery are critically important for the data safety. So we have this thing called ISO 20. People say it's so many different. So it's 27001. There's a bunch of different ISO numbers out there, but it's a different international standards organization. But it gives us this framework for how to protect ourselves against the data loss. So some of the top 6 reasons why backup and recovery are essential for data safety are, well, protection against the data loss. You know, helps us protect against any of those, whether it be hardware, software, or any of those. It protects us against that. Um, Disaster recovery, storing stuff offsite helps us safeguard against, say, a fire at our location. Minimizing the downtime. So a good backup strategy helps us minimize that downtime. If there is a backup from last Monday, you can get to it. If I had a different version I can get to, I can go back to it. Backups are essential for the security side of things, and overall business resilience. We talked about the compliance side. So regulatory compliance, organizations face increasing compliance. If I want to do business online, if I want to take credit cards, if I'm a healthcare organization, we have to comply. So there's all these different regulations. And then ultimately cost effectiveness. So implementing some sort of backup is going to lower cost of ownership. You're going to get a bigger return on investment. It's going to help you in the long run. Take a quick breather here, guys. I did want to share some of the disaster recovery statistics to kind of maybe help us open our eyes here. So, despite some of the importance of planning, it's not always practiced by organizations. I've done consulting work for many organizations, and I've asked some of the really hard questions, like, is this the only copy of your guys' data on this computer right here? Or wow, are you guys putting all your post-it notes with passwords all over the computer? So there's there's always these hard questions. So just some interesting and, well, sometimes frightening statistics that we need to look at. So 96% of the organizations experience at least one incident of downtime. That's definitely believable. Um, Skipping down to some of the, more than 60% of the organizations say human error was the cause of downtime. So, and I've done it. I've been guilty of it too. I've deleted files on a server before and watched the phone light up because my colleagues were trying to get to some files. Um, yeah, it happens. It just happens. And then whether it might be intentional or unintentional, it's a human error. Um, 83% of organizations have experienced multiple data breaches. That's also very concerning. And I think this last one here is also something that's kind of eye-opening. Permanent data loss has been experienced by 45%. Almost half the organizations out there have experienced some sort of permanent data loss. They've probably lost customer files, um, order information, maybe financial information. That could be very costly. So think about that. Almost half the organizations out there have experienced some sort of data loss. So again, I think that kind of highlights the importance, and again, underline the importance of um, backing up our data. So if you haven't noticed yet, personal data and business data safety it's very important for both. Um, so you may never go into a job where you're working with, say, firewalls and all these different access control rules, and that's totally fine. But hopefully you're taking a lot of this information and you could take it back to the personal side of things, because a lot of this is just as important in your personal data as well. A lot of what we do for the organizations, we need to be doing for ourselves. Um, I'll take a quick minute to kind of share with everybody. I always tell everybody uh, it's the 3-2-1 rule. So, we always say it's easy as 1-2-3, but so with data backup, we've kind of turned around. Backing up data is as easy as 3-2-1. We should have three backups, three total backups on two types of media, and one of those backups needs to be off-site or off the location or not on my local phone here, so somewhere else. So I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through, but we call it the 3-2-1 rule, or I always say backing up data is as easy as 3-2-1. But that's something we use in the business world, but we should also use that same rule with our personal data. We need to protect personal memories, and we can also be victim of ransomware and cyber attacks as well. Just like businesses need to worry about business continuity, they have intellectual property that they need to protect. They might not have pictures like we have, personal things, but they have intellectual property, and they have to worry about compliance and all those. So in both personal and business context, data it's a valuable asset. We need to protect it. The safety of it is critical, and backing up and recovering this data is also very important. So individuals and organizations should establish and maintain regular backup routines. We need to have a routine. So hopefully that's something you guys can leave with here today as well. Yeah, leaving with a routine. Okay, I'm into this routine here of backing up my data. I'll try to share some strategies. Oh, so there we go. I guess I wasn't clicking through some of those there. Sorry about that. I get a quick drink here, guys. Okay, so hopefully everybody's doing well out there. 20 more. So look, I was just looking at the clock here, just make sure we're staying on time. Give me 20 more minutes, guys. We'll take a quick little break. Again, backing up, recovery. It's important in our personal lives. It's important in our business lives. There's so many benefits for both. Customer trust on one end, on the business end. Um, just having the peace of mind on the personal end as well. So data restoration. Now that's kind of the stressful side of things, but it's some of those if things happen, that's kind of one of those things that we need to do. So data restoration through backup and recovery is essential in a variety of scenarios where data is just corrupted. So it can happen in many different things. So some common scenarios where data gets corrupted and might need restored. Well, physical, say a hardware failure, like this guy right here. I don't know if do you guys have any of these portable storage devices? Here's the big culprit of that. These have kind of gone away. Oops, sorry. These little flash drives. These were very prone to failure. So sometimes we might need to restore data that might be on one of these drives or on the drive on our computer. Or we might need to worry about software corruption. Could be intentional or unintentional. Malware could have messed with things. Accidental deletion, ransomware attacks, yeah, any of those things that can happen. Um, those are kind of the cybersecurity side of things. And then, lastly, legal. We might need some historical analysis or research. We might need to go back to some things. There might be some legal cases or litigation. Hopefully the IRS isn't going after us. That's the organization here that goes after us with the taxes here in the States. But hopefully we don't need to do that for our business. But in the case that we need to, we have a data backup from say 7 years ago, and we can look at that. As well as, a lot of a lot of regulatory, we have to have a plan for end of life systems. What do we do? when we bring systems down, how do we restore that? So um, again, data restoration through backup recovery is vital for addressing a wide range of these scenarios: the physical, the cyber, the legal. Many of those things are going to happen there. Kind of look at that there. Again, sorry about that. I should have been clicking through as we were going. Um, Again, those are three areas that we always need to look at, and we're not immune to any of those. We can all fall victim to a physical snafu, something just failed. We can all fall victim to ransomware, and we all have to abide by some legal and regulatory things. So, and let's see, we got another discussion question coming up here. So, who has experienced issues where they or their companies recovered data using a backup? So, if you guys you can jump into the live chat there and share. Have you ever worked have you as yourself, or have you ever worked for a company where you've had to recover data from a backup? Yes. Hopefully you're jumping into the chat there. I want to share I've got a bunch of stories that I could share. I definitely have been a part of many companies that have experienced this, and we've had to recover from a backup. I guess one that sticks in my mind vividly. Um, I was working for a college way back in the day, and we were shifting from the quarter system to the semester system, and this was a while ago. Um, so we had actually lost some of the data in that transition, and not good. Um, Again, we had to come back. We had to go back to a backup. Find a, okay, let's go back 2 months and find the backup there, and find where our courses were. We were making courses for quarters, and then we had to switch and make courses for semesters. So we had lost that data. So we had to recover that stuff. Um, that's not that fun. I do a lot of computer work for people. I've had to help many folks uh, recover their personal files. They have one that I see the most. They have thousands and thousands of pictures or videos. They might do photography or videography, and they lose one of their hard drives. So they have to recover from a backup. I have a friend right now. He does music recording, and his computer just went down. He's having to restore a bunch of those project files from some backups. He had to rebuild his computer. Again, always stressful. Something that's not fun. I'm just kind of checking the chats here, see what we got, guys, and some of you may have never had to do that. And again, feel fortunate if you've never had to restore something from a backup. Um, Hopefully you're kind of thinking now, well, maybe I should start thinking about that, and maybe just make sure I have everything set to go just in case. So, um, I guess that kind of wrapped up the first little lesson there. Jumping into lesson two, this one's covering data protection measures. So what are some of these steps that we can take to protect our data? So let me kind of go through some of these here real quick. Um, these are essential. I mean, this is probably a really long list, and I'm sure there's more. It's not an everything list, but it's quite a big list here. Um, what can we do to safeguard and secure our data and help it maintain, and we call this, guys, the CIA, maintain its confidentiality, integrity, and availability? Those are in cybersecurity, those are the three pillars. That's what we call. We protect its confidentiality, the data's integrity, and its availability. So what are some things that I can do? How do I do that? So one thing, access control. That is, I can set strict access rules on who can get the data and who can't. I don't just say everybody gets access. No, the finance folks get access to this. The IT folks get access to this. So we create access controls. We also do encryption. So data encryption, we scramble the data and we create a key that helps us unscramble the data on the other end. So we scramble up that data. Very important for, say, somebody like a bank. I'm hoping they're doing a lot of data encryption. They all do data encryption, but some others should put a lot more emphasis on things compared to others. Network wise, we could put a firewall. Just so you guys know, a firewall is an actual like device. It comes in a box. I put it into my network. It's an actual device that I set up and sits there. And if you're not familiar with what a firewall is, you have one in your car. You might have one if you live in an apartment. It's those walls that protect you from, say, the other apartment, or in your car, it's that wall that protects you from the engine if it happens to catch fire. Our networks have firewalls. It's a wall. That box that I was talking, it's literally a wall in your network that I can control who comes in and who doesn't. We have antivirus, anti-malware, as well as some security patch management. I think a lot of people out there think that's really all we need, right? We just have to have some antivirus, anti-malware, and we are good to go. But again, it's a lot more than that. We need strong passwords. We need multi-factor authentication, where we log in with our phone along with our keyboards and our passwords. That makes things double safe, right? That multi-factor, that's where we get that. Um, Data classification, which data is sensitive versus which data is important versus which data is just kind of there, sandbox, and we can delete it. Um, Data loss prevention to kind of protect ourselves to prevent unauthorized data transfers. Do we see data leaving the server or any of that? As well as endpoint security, compliance, and then finally just some plans. Having a plan for how to back up. Backup and recovery strategies are crucial for we have to eliminate, we call it those single points of failure. Having everything on my laptop is a single point of failure. Very bad. It's not the way we want to do. So to do that, we need redundant storage devices. So that's we call a drive that has two hard drives in it that are mirroring each other. We can have an offsite backup. We have load balancing. We can just put stuff in a data center. So we can have stuff in the cloud and just have it in a data center somewhere. As well as we'll have redundant internet connections. So if we are having things in the cloud, it is always good to have multiple internet connections. If one happens to go down, we still have access to our data in the cloud through other means. Redundant power sources. This is almost a must. Those backup power systems. So if we do happen to have a brownout or a little blip, um, I'll kind of go through these rather quickly. Backup and archiving, as well as having a disaster recovery plan. Virtualization, the geo redundancy is, well, we have data here. We also have data probably stored off on the West Coast somewhere, in different towns, as well as the compliance, ensuring that our data is protected um, based on industry specific regulations and standards. So things like HIPAA in the healthcare world will kind of dictate some of that. Um, but again, those are just some of the strategies that we can implement that will eliminate those single points of failure. We don't want that. And just to share my experience, I've walked into many organizations to do consulting. Oh, and I've seen all that stuff on the list there. It's like, oh, you guys don't have backup power sources. Oh, you guys don't have redundant storage devices. So these are just a few of the many things that we can do. Also, primary and secondary databases. Everybody's using a database these days. If you're keeping some sort of data on customers, products, everybody's got a database. So a good a good thing to do is always have a primary database server as well as a secondary database server. Um, Updates are replicated to the secondary. It's separate from the primary, so we can test things. Essentially, we want to have a test place for things to go. And ultimately, the secondary database can be something totally off-site or in a different geographic location altogether. All right. Well, those were some of our strategies there. I'm gonna grab a quick drink here, guys. I go over some backup essentials here. I think that'll probably lead us right up to um, our break coming up here right around 1. But some of the backup essentials here, guys. Backing up our data, it's a fundamental aspect of data management. Um, we need to have a regular backup schedule. So we need to establish regular automated backups. Um, we need to identify what data needs to be backed up. We also need to kind of prioritize. So which data it should be backed up first versus which is last, as well as come up with say a data retention policy. Um, like how long do we keep the data? Do we even keep some of this data? Or is some of this data something we keep from now until the end of, the business exists? We also need to think about backup locations. So we have on-site and off-site locations, as well as the encryption. So there are different types of encryption. We'll have time to go into all of those today, but we have full disk encryption versus, just encrypting in particular files. So testing and validation. So are we testing our backups? And are we using versions and as well as uh, incremental and differential backups, which we'll talk about here in a little bit? There's backup software that we need to look at, as well as compression. There's and redundant storage, and again, there's a lot of stuff. So effective backup practices are crucial, guys, for safeguarding ourselves. What are we backing up? Where are we going to back it up? Is it on-site or off-site? When are we doing it? Again, how often? Weekly, bi-weekly, monthly? How are we doing it? We putting it on media? We putting it on hard drives? Or we just putting it in the cloud? And again, who's doing it? Who can get access to it? Along with the training. Part of that training side of things is, that disaster recovery. I've worked with a lot of organizations. They practice losing their data and they practice bringing it back up. That's something that they do. So that's part of their training. So again, identifying critical data is a crucial step in developing a comprehensive and effective backup strategy, right? Not all data is equally important. So one thing we do, we start by creating an inventory of all the data that we have. So we have documents, we have databases, we have applications, we have all that those different things. And then we start by classifying them. So some of the data is going to be critical, some of the data is going to be sensitive, and some data is just general data, right? So we treat those different types of data differently. We also need to identify owners, so who owns the data, who can access the data. Is this data a part of any sort of regulatory compliances? As well as how long do we retain the data? And well, who all needs the data as well? Is this just something for department heads? Is this something for everybody? So once we've identified critical data, then we can tailor this backup strategy to prioritize the backup and assure that we have the most valuable assets that there are being safeguarded. Oh, there it is. I always miss these. I apologize, guys. Sorry. Sorry. I always miss the I should see that there's a bunch of those coming up there, so I apologize. So, but again, identifying all that critical data and just kind of the details about them. Whose data is it? How important is it? How much should we be backing it up? So organizations can back up their data to various locations. So one question we might ask is, where is the backup data stored? So is it on the device? Is it in the cloud? Is it offsite in a data center? Is it all on people's mobile devices? I've seen that before. All the data is on people's like iPads. So not good, right? So and then what type of data is being backed up, right? So is it personal records? Is it financial data? Is it patents? Like industry data, intellectual property? Are we talking about media files, videos, or any of those? Or are we talking about applications? Do we even need to save applications? Sometimes if we lose an application, we just go get it and re-download it. So do we need to save those? So these are things that we need to think about and strategies that we need to come up with. And then let me see. And I think that comes up with our data backup strategies. I think I'm kind of looking at the time here. I know we're coming close to a break here, so I'm not sure if we'll kind of keep going or just take a break here soon. But I do we'll talk about some backup strategies here, which is, well, as we'll see here, I'll go over them: a full backup, an incremental backup, a differential backup, a mirror backup, a snapshot, a synthetic, and then a grandfather, father, son, which sometimes we abbreviate as a GFS backup. Um, I'll check with Rasha here. Should I keep going, Rasha, through the break here and just kind of cover this before we break, or just kind of come back?
Yeah, I think it's a perfect time for a 5 minutes break. Then we can
Do
come back and continue with the second part of the session.
Yeah, let's do a 5 minute break, guys. I'm gonna turn my camera off. I'm gonna turn my mic off, but I'm gonna be here. I just don't want you guys to see me drinking a bunch of water as I catch up here. Guys, take a quick little breather. Check your phone. My wife is out with the kids swimming, so let me check the messages. There's probably some really good messages. I'll see you guys here in about 5 minutes. So talk to you soon. I could probably just listen to the music and watch the roller coaster thing the whole time, guys. So thank you for the nice break there. Thank you, Amar, for doing that. That's a nice little break of the action. Okay, I got refreshed. I checked some of my messages. Looks like the family's having fun at the pool today. I just checked. There's a lot of participants in this meeting here, so I just want to again say thank you everybody for joining. Oh my gosh, there's a lot of people here. So, again, thank you for joining again on a Friday evening after a long week of work. So, hopefully the weather is not crazy hot there like it is here. It's so I think for Celsius it's like 34, 35 degrees Celsius. It is not a pleasant time. So, very nice just kind of be inside. So. All right, looks like the recording is going again. Let's jump back into things because I want to talk about the different types of backups. And this is kind of the nerdy IT stuff that I get into here. And it's good to know the different types of backups that we're dealing with. You may not know that there's some different types that we have here. So, and actually, oh, let me see here. I should probably make sure I am sharing my screen before I jump into things. Let's see here. Let me quit screen two. So let me give it a quick little second to make sure. Hopefully you all are seeing my screen on that end. Cool. Thank you, Amon, for the thumbs up. I see it there. So again, the different types of backups, and actually I've got the few notes here. I made sure because again, this is a lot of data here, and I try to make a few notes for myself to make sure I explain it the best way possible for all of you. So I made a few analogies here to kind of help us understand it. But I think this first one here is kind of a full backup, right? So we're talking when we do a full and sometimes it's called a snapshot backup, but I essentially just grab an entire backup of all my data. And I have the first backup and I have a second backup. So one way that I've seen this in action before, many companies they would have 7 different drives. They would have a backup for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So that you would have a whole set of a week's backups. And you could always go back to, well, we could easily go back to one of those days there. So that's kind of an easy one. We literally just take a full snapshot of our data, and there it is. There's the backup from Monday. Kind of think about real quick of some of the cons to that. I mean, it's kind of cool. We got all our backup and we've got per day. But what if we have hundreds of gigabytes of data, right? And then every day we're copying hundreds of gigabytes or maybe even terabytes of data. Eventually, we're going to need lots more data, and that's going to eventually, up our cost. So something else we can do something called a mirror backup. Well, and that's kind of think of it. It's we're going to take a mirror image, an exact mirror image of of our live system here, and we're going to always have a backup system. So and there's that one word again, redundancy. We're going to create some redundancy. So we've always got a backup system running. And again, this is a nice and easy way that works, right? Um, has some cons, has many pros, has some cons, right? We might not be able to get the versioning like we could in like a full backup. Um, there is always that chance that the backup system goes down, right? I've seen that before. The live system goes down and the backup system goes down, and then you're just kind of, uh-oh. So there's always the chance of that happening. But again, on the pro side, a mirror backup is pretty simple. Actually, they make devices. They make devices that sometimes have 2 drives sitting there side by side each other, and they're sitting there mirroring each other and making an exact copy of each other. Um, yeah, that's another nice, easy way to do my backups. But now we introduce something called an incremental backup. So we have a full backup that we do on Monday, and then we have another backup that we do, just an increment though, on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday as well. And then as we can see, the restore then requires all the media from all the days, right? So if we need to restore it, we need to have all that media is kind of dependent on each other. And that's incremental. So each media, all the media from each day needs to be there for us to restore it. So we're saving parts of it. Kind of nice. A lot better than doing that full backup, right, all the time. So a differential backup, on Monday, we grab a full backup. And then on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we're only grabbing the difference, the things that are different. So only the full and then the relevant day's media are needed to be accessed to then run that restore. Let me see. So I got some notes here, guys, because again, I just want to make sure we didn't get confused here. So let me just kind of go over my notes. So to make sure we understand the difference between incremental and differential. So incremental on Tuesday, we copy only Tuesday's notes. And then on Wednesday, we only copy just Wednesday's notes. If we were doing a differential and say we were doing a notebook, so on Tuesday, we copy Tuesday's notes. And then on Wednesday, we copy Tuesday plus Wednesday and Monday. So we're we're doing a lot more. So incremental, we're doing more backups, but we're using less space. Whereas differential, we're using fewer pieces, but they're in bigger chunks. So think of it as building a complete backup file, as stitching things together is kind of what that is. When we're going to rebuild a backup file, we're going to stitch it back together. So how are we going to do that? Are we going to do it with incremental backups, or are we going to do it with what was different? Again, these are a little, I mean, again, a little more difficult than say just doing that full backup or a mirror backup. But again, these have different pros and cons as well. To make it even more confusing, right? Here's this synthetic backup. So I got some notes here too. So these synthetic backups, they save you time and bandwidth. They assemble a fresh full backup without pulling from live systems. So I guess the big thing with the synthetic backups, we're never really touching our live data. As we can see here. So Monday, we do a full backup. Tuesday, we have Mondays plus there. Wednesdays, we have Mondays plus the Tuesdays, and then we add that one. So we're kind of adding on to it there. Again, guys, those are three that are kind of, again, they're very different from that full backup. But we're trying to utilize, technology a little bit more, so we're not taking up tons of storage space, right? That's what we don't want to take up tons of storage space that we would be doing with, say, a full backup system. But then kind of shifting gears again over to this GFS system, or grandfather father son backup system. And this is something, when I see this is something I think that probably many of you might do with, say, your pictures. I do this with my pictures, my personal pictures. And this is, maybe if you're not doing it, maybe this is something you could do. So a grandfather father son backup is, there's son backups, which are incremental or differential, whichever one you pick, but they're not full backups. They're incremental type backups that happen daily. So we can see here that with the gray. So on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we do a son backup, an incremental backup. Then on weekly, we do these father backups. So these aren't as frequent, but we do these full father. So these are full backups too, not incremental. So incremental on the daily, a full backup, and it doesn't have to be Sunday, although Sunday is a good day since nobody's working in most places. Sunday we do the full backup, and then on a monthly cycle, a monthly backup cycle, we do a grandfather backup. And I think the big part of the grandfather backup is, this is where we do a full backup that we then store offsite, whether it might be on a drive, or we put it in the cloud, or one of those. So again, incremental, differential, there's that synthetic. We have full backups where we could just take the whole thing, or we mirror, or we could use this GFS system. So when we're talking about backups, there are many different strategies, many different ways that we can back up. So again, the question comes up, why doesn't everybody do it then? Right? We all see the benefit, we all see the why we need to do it. So why doesn't it happen? So here's kind of the top three reasons that organizations aren't performing data backups like they should. One that I see a lot is just a simple lack of awareness. They might not be aware or understand the importance of their data. They might just see their data is there, or they might feel that their data is just getting backed up. I don't have to worry about it. So they just need some training. Um, and maybe they're not prioritizing or investing in some of the stuff they need. There may be some resource constraints. They might have limited resources. Maybe they want to do full backups, but they just don't have the IT capabilities, the people, or the funds to do that. So there might not be a budget for that. That's kind of a big concern sometimes. And then lastly, which we always try to avoid, but complacency and overconfidence. I've worked with people who have said, "Oh, nobody's trying to steal our data, or we don't have to worry about that. And I think it just comes from overconfidence. Or maybe just complacency, where they're just kind of being a lackadaisical about it. Um, so we need to worry about that. Those are the kind of the three barriers that we often see when dealing with why aren't you guys backing up your data? I have asked that question many times. Why aren't you guys backing up this data? And it's like, oh well, we don't have the resources. Our employees aren't aware of this, or they might say, hey, what do you mean? Nobody's trying to steal our data. So we've got to overcome some of these barriers. So, real quick, just a quick discussion question before we move on. Review the difference between full and differential backups. What are some considerations that an organization would need to review when deciding which option to use? So, real quick, if you guys want to jump into the chat, and you can use, if you want to, the World Wide Web or any of that, if you want to kind of jump in and kind of look and see, you know, what would force one of these organizations to say, okay, we need to start doing full backups, or I think we need to do a different. So, what are some of the factors that might lead to that decision? Give everybody a few minutes here to kind of ponder that. And just kind of a hint, all right, kind of think about cost. Think about think about that. Think about staffing as well. Like who would be doing these backups? So looking back at some of the past questions, looks like Sebastian jumped in. He had to restore a lot of photos from a phone backup one day. So I had to help somebody do that a long time ago. They had actually had, and this was way back. They had actually, when you would plug your phone into your iMac, their pictures had actually gone into their iMac, and off of their phone, and they had lost it on their phone. So we had to move them from the iMac back over to the phone and recover it that way. So, thankfully, iCloud, it seems to be a lot better these days in doing that. Again, I'm giving just a few minutes there to kind of um, ponder this question there. But again, think of think of these organizations and think of, they're trying to figure out what should we do? How should we do these backups? So, you know, what are some things that they're going to need to think about? I threw out there the money side of things. And and thanks, Sebastian. Sebastian put there. It depends on how much money they want to spend on storage, which I guess in my experience, how much does upper management want to spend on IT? Yes, I guess in my experience, they always want to spend the zero amount of dollars on the least amount that they can, of course, is what everyone wants to spend. Um, I guess to kind of go along with that too, uh, think about the workers, the man hours that goes into this. Um, I mean, who would be like, say I want to implement this backup and backup plan, and I want to do full backups. But I think, the IT manager, one of their first questions is, well, who's going to do this? And do we have the manpower, as we say, do we have the staff to make this happen? Do we have somebody that can do a weekly full backup? Um, Not just to go along with the money. So that's something we need to look at considering as well. Well, so and then so Maddie put in there. So it depends on the amount of data to back up. That's something we got to consider. What if your supervisor came in and said, "Oh, hey, you need to get that 3 terabytes of data backed up, right?" Um, yeah, so we needed to. How much data do we have? So those are some considerations. How long would that data take to recover? Yeah, definitely. That's some things we need to think of as well. So again, kind of think about some of the different considerations an organization would need to think about, right? How much data do we have? Do we have the manpower to do this? Do we have the storage? Do we have the local storage to do this? Um, and do we have the budget? Cost? Do we have the budget to do this? So a lot of this goes into it. And again, kind of the reality sometime. I mean, it's kind of just the way it is. A lot of times businesses and organizations kind of want to take the cheaper way out, right? That's kind of the way to go. We can just take the least expensive way out of this. All right, well, definitely want to kind of move forward here and make sure we kind of get through the remaining slides that we have here. Um, but as we go in here, guys, I just want to talk about some of the removal media that's out there, some of the backup things that we see. And I guess I shouldn't say that we see these these devices that we're seeing here are starting to kind of go away now, right? We don't see these too much. Back in my early days of working in IT, these were our bread and butter. We had tape drives, we had cartridges, we had big shelving systems with tape libraries. I still have one of these nice shelves in my house. They're very nice, but these had to be monstrous shelves to hold these very large tapes that just held our data. And then we had these network attached storage drives there, these NAS drives. So I remember a lot of these, although these are starting to go away as we move more towards the cloud. So just some things. So some common media. So we had magnetic tapes. That's what we see here. So our ones and our zeros in our data are stored on magnetic tapes as positive and negative signals. Did you guys know that? Isn't that crazy? That's always one of those mind-blowing things. When we see a magnetic tape drive, that's how those magnetic tapes work. The ones and zeros are being encoded as positive and negative magnets. External drives, I think I showed you guys all that. These external drives there. We have external drives. There's those network attached storage drives. Those are essentially drives that just plug into our network. Optical media, we don't see those as much anymore, but CDs, DVDs, Blu-rays. I remember a time when we used Blu-ray disc as storage. They held 50 gigabytes. That was a lot of data. And at the time, that was the most data that was the leader. If I wanted to store the most data, I had to use a Blu-ray disc. But nowadays, we're getting cloud storage. That's starting to come. Online backup services. There's many out there. Carbonite, Dropbox. There's so many different cloud services now that are coming out. But then we have those tapes as well as cartridges. Wow, get those cartridges. It's been a long time since I've seen cartridges. But again, tapes and cartridges also worked on that magnet technology. Again, our ones and zeros are getting just encoded as positive and negative magnets. Um, but the choice of media really just depends on many factors, like the volume, speed, cost. Like those those tape drives were very slow, very like incredibly slow. I don't know if I could explain how slow those were. But they didn't cost that much. They didn't cost that much. Whereas CDs, DVDs, those things almost costed pennies. They didn't hold that much. Sometimes they weren't as reliable either. We then started getting a lot of the portable media. And again, these are also one of those that are kind of going by the wayside. We're not seeing them there anymore. Just so you know, I have one of these nice little flash drives. This is what got me through undergraduate and graduate school. All my work I put on these little drives. So, we have removable storage drives, we have flash drives, we have portable NAS drives. The USB drives are small, they're portable, they're convenient, um, various capacities, they're pretty fast. I like it. I think this one's like a 2 terabyte drive. I have all my stuff on here. I got my video games on here. I got a lot of stuff on there. Um, these flash drives, thumb drive, stick drive, there's so many different names that they went by. Super small, portable, very useful. I could do a quick little transfer, plug it in my computer, take it over, plug it in there. One thing everybody found out the hard way, it's really easy to lose one of these things, right? That thing's really tiny, and they only made them even smaller, so I could easily lose that. It's kind of a fatal flaw, right? If I just up and lose it. And then we started getting more portable NAS drives, these smaller drives that I could fit onto my desktop, plug it into the network, take it with me and set it up and work on the go as well as collaborate with others. So again, there's pros and cons with all these. So, removable media, it's portable, it's got 2 terabytes of storage, it's fast. This thing's so fast. USB 3, it's great. Although would be pretty easy for me to sit this in a coffee shop and somebody to steal it. Pretty easy for me to throw this in my bag and then this thing just breaks. I've done that before, as well as security risks, right? I mean, is this thing encrypted? Do I know? I mean, so I've got some issues to worry about there. Portable media, pros and cons, it's very portable. It's super fast, super duper fast. Um, if I don't have internet and I need offline access, well, geez, I got it all right here. I don't need an external power source. I just plug it into my computer. Um, but this thing is very vulnerable to not just theft, but me just losing it, just plain losing it. Um, Reliability, that started to become an issue. I always told people these things have about a 2 or 3 year shelf life on it, and you want to get rid of it because it's just going to die. As well as, kind of complexity, those NAS devices. I mean, for the everyday user, sometime bringing one of those home and trying to set it up on your network was something that not the everyday user was just able to do. So again, different pros and cons. I won't go through all these. I could probably spend many, many minutes talking about this one. But again, magnetic tapes. Magnetic tapes were great. They were cheap, high storage capacity. Um, Whereas, kind of they were slow. They degraded over time. Um, for each of those tapes, you need specialized hardware to read them. External drives, they're great. These things, they got high capacity. They're not that expensive. Like this 2 terabyte drive that I got was like $50, 50 American dollars. That's not that much at all. Um, Portable, I could take it anywhere. They're pretty reliable. Um, Although some cons, I I do have this backed up, just so you guys know. But it's a single point of failure. If I had everything on here and this thing breaks, I just lost everything. Cloud storage is great. Some of the pros, let me go back to that. I don't have to worry about backing things up. Somebody else is doing it for me. I'm paying for this service. I can access my data from anywhere, anytime. There's probably some automated backups going. Some downsides, it probably costs a lot more. Um, there's probably some security concerns. And that data isn't in my building anymore. My data is somewhere else. That doesn't sit well with a lot of people. We have things like optical media, those hard drives, as well as like CDs, DVDs, those. They're inexpensive. Some of them are portable. They're durable. Um, but again, they have a shelf life on those. These hard drives that you're seeing here, that drive is going to spin around for a few years and it's going to die. It's just going to fail one day. And then network attached storage. Oops, I'm sorry about that, guys. I keep clicking on that one. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. I want to stop clicking. Sorry, sorry guys. Sorry. Uh, network attached storage, right? Anytime you're dealing with networks, I mean, most people are not experts on networks, right? So if I've got to attach another device, sometimes by a wire, to my router, I mean that can be a barrier for some time, or a con. Some pros, it's nice. These are great. I loved these things. Centralized storage. We could all share that device. We could all access the data. It usually had redundancy, so a lot of those network attached storage devices had two or three drives in them doing their own mirroring. So, I mean, they were great. They worked well. So the choice of it, whichever one you go with, you're gonna have to look at factors like volume, speed, cost, the needs of your organization. In many cases, it's all going to come down to a combination of those things. Um, Cost, effectiveness, what can we do as an organization? So it's really coming down with a strategy that works for the organization. Now, those were hardware side of things. We have software as well that does a lot of the backups. And this is getting to be more and more popular these days. So there are specialized software to automate and facilitate that whole backup process for you. And for the most part, it does work pretty well. It's not as great, I think, as doing it manual, having humans in charge, but it is nice there. It is kind of nice to have an automated system. So these solutions vary in terms of like features and scalability, but as you can see here, you're buying a service from, say, Dell or Symantec, or Acronis is one. So just there's just some examples there. So Veeam is a widely used backup and recovery solution that's out there. Symantec's also one. So Acronis is one that I've used Acronis a lot. Acronis is great for taking a snapshot of somebody's computer, and I can actually take that snapshot and rebuild that person's computer on another computer. So I always loved Acronis as a backup tool. Um, Dell has also gotten into the mix as well, and there are many others that aren't even listed here. But when choosing backup software, again, more factors that you need to consider. The size of your organization. You may not need a Dell enterprise level solution. What types of data are you backing up? You may not even need software or anything here. Um, as well as, some of the compatibility with your existing infrastructure. Um, Dell may offer you a product, but it might not fit with your current system, and upgrading your system for millions of dollars is might not be the best choice to do. So, um, here's a quick question before we kind of jump into some things. Yeah, just kind of looking at the time here, guys. We're kind of closing in on 2 o'clock here, and got a few more slides to go over, but let's kind of real quick think about, why do we need to do backups? Give me one reason in the chat. Why do I need to do a backup? Yeah, I love it, Seth. Business continuity, right? I don't if we walk into work tomorrow and all the data is gone, what do we do? Well, if we've got backups to fall back on, we get back up and running. So we need to have the business continuity. So yeah, great answer. Business continuity. That's one of the reasons we need to do backups. I'll wait for any other folks here as we kind of jump in there. And to be sure that all our data, everything that we got there is safe. And if something fails, we can recover from it, right? Protection against data loss. Again, that's exactly what we need, right? Again, I just want to remind, don't forget about the versions too. I was like, that's another. I think that's something that saved me the most, and like the and what I in my experience is being having versions, like having a version of this file that I can go back to like last Monday, like just in case you're working on something and it doesn't go the way you want it to, you can kind of come back to something. Great, guys. So keep thinking about, why do we need to do these backups? And again, you can think about for your business, or you could even think about, for yourself. Why do you need to do a backup of some of your personal files? Why do you need to do that? Let's hear. So, um, so a backup configuration. So backup configurations and scheduling are vital components of effective data backup strategy. So it helps us determine the what, the when, and then the how our data is backed up. So here's just kind of a little overview of our configurations and our scheduling. So kind of that first step there is the selection of the data, the backups. We need to define what data needs to be backed up. So do we back up all our files? Are we backing up just databases? Are we just backing up configurations? What are we backing up? Next is that prioritization. So prioritize the data based on its importance. So obviously, more essential data should be backed up more frequently as opposed to data that isn't as important. I'm not saying you shouldn't back it up, but we should have some prioritization. Third, that third step, data retention policies. How long do we keep these backups? Are there any like regulatory compliances that we need to do, requirements? Or is it part of just the business's mission? Do we keep this stuff forever? Or do we just get rid of it after a while? So again, how long do we retain this stuff? Then to the frequency, backup frequency. How often do we do this? Is this a daily thing, a weekly thing, a monthly thing? And then we choose those methods. And that's going back to, is it a full method, full backup, an incremental? So which one of those are we doing? And then finally, compression, encryption, and deduplication, right? So um, compressing the data to reduce some of that storage space, and then enabling data encryption. So we're scrambling that data to protect it, not just during storage, but also transmission. So encrypting it. All right. So let's see here, guys. So let me see here. So backup scheduling is kind of what comes next. And then we talk about, you know, establishing a regular and automated backup schedule is what we need to ensure the consistency. And just kind of a tip, everyone. We usually do this stuff during like not peak use. Yeah, we usually pick a non like don't do it on Monday morning. Like we would usually pick a low time, like Sunday evening, or non-work hours. So we try to do this, when folks aren't working, not the 9 to 5. So one thing we look at frequency. We set the frequency of the backups. We also define a backup window, which is kind of that time frame when backups occur. So we're going to avoid those peak hours. We're going to determine retention periods. So how long are these backups set and retained? So alerts and reporting. So we're going to configure any alerts and reporting to notify us if anything didn't work. As well as we're going to work on testing. We're going to schedule regular tests and validations to make sure, hey, what we're doing is working there. as well as some concurrent backups. We're going to ensure that backup schedules don't overlap or any of that. So these configurations, guys, are helping us figure out that what, when, and how our data is backed up. And we're going to ensure there's protection and the availability for our organization requirements are also are going to kind of dictate what happens here. Now we've kind of gone away from all these little guys here. Sad face for me. Like I loved using those, but all of a sudden this cloud stuff came around, cloud backup, and it's the norm now. We all just assume the cloud is there and it's working for us, right? So cloud storage, or also just known as online storage or online backup, is really a strategy that involves us storing our data in a remote cloud-based server, or essentially it's a data center. That's where when we have our data, say at Dropbox or with Amazon or somebody, that data lives somewhere out in one of those data centers. And if you've never seen one before, maybe Google it. They're actually pretty cool. They look really neat. Just a whole big warehouse full of servers, essentially. So how does this backup work? So there's data transfer. So cloud backup software transfers our data over the internet to a secure server. So the data transfer there. So what's on my computer is getting duplicated and transferred over to some server where it's getting stored. So the data is stored, and actually it's stored on multiple servers in multiple data centers. I think that's something everyone should know. If I have my data in, say, iCloud, it's probably in a server somewhere in California where Apple is. It's probably sitting on a couple other servers all across the country and maybe even across the world. So it gets stored, multiple locations, different geographical locations. And so that's where we get that redundancy. That data is transferred, it's stored, it's then encrypted. So essentially we scramble all those ones and zeros, and we create a key for it that helps us unscramble it. And that's what we can see that there, that nice little key. Kind of think of that whenever you hear encryption, think of a key. So we scramble, we create a secret message, and we have a key to help us unlock that secret message. And then finally it ends up there in a data server form. So data in the cloud is stored remotely somewhere in what they call these data server farms. They're kind of neat. Um, Physical storage could span multiple servers. Your storage could span multiple locations. It all just kind of depends. Again, it's all being controlled somewhere off by your cloud service provider. So, what are some of the benefits of this cloud storage? Why is everybody going to it? Well, my data's offsite. It's scalable. What if my business just grows overnight and I need more storage? Well, I can just get more storage if I've got cloud storage. Accessibility, if it's in the cloud, everybody can get to it all around the world from any device, Mac, PC, whatever, tablet. Um, there's a lot of automation happening. I don't have to do any of this stuff, right? It's backing things up. It's doing it for me. Cloud storage also does that data versioning for us. A lot of those have that built in. I don't know if you've ever used any of the Google products like Google Drive. I can look at different versions of a lot of the files that I have there. And then ultimately the redundancy. You just can't beat that redundancy. I have my stuff in the cloud, and it's not just saved there, it's saved probably at 10 different locations. Things that we consider when going to cloud storage: cost, of course, the dependency on an internet connection, security and privacy, some things we need to think about. People don't like the idea of my data being somewhere else. I like it in my location where I can control it. As well as speed, right? Sometimes you might not be in a location where cloud computing can work. You don't have the internet speed to do it, although that's changing. in today's world. Here soon, we'll have high-speed internet everywhere, right? So there's popular cloud services out there: Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, Dropbox. There's so many out there. Carbonite's one I've used as well. It really just many factors kind of go into kind of which one you choose. How much data do I have? What kind of data do I have? What's my budget, as well as compliance regulations. Sometimes you might need to go with something like, say, Amazon Web Services, who might be able to provide a HIPAA level cloud storage for you. Let's see here. Let's get to the next one. Some other backup options there. So there's with cloud storage. So we can have cloud archiving. We also have live backups. So we replicate the company's data in real time. So kind of that mirror image. Whereas we also just have those archives, right? We can go back to a different day. And then cloud services can also offer us the disaster recovery backup. So might be something we need, if we've got a large business and we're keeping everything in the cloud, we could maybe purchase this disaster recovery backup system. Again, cost is going to be a very important factor in that. These are services that you typically have to pay for. They're not just going to be free. So some benefits of cloud live backups: it reduces the cost. It's easy for people to retrieve the data. Um, we help eliminate data loss there because there's a continuous and automatic backup happening. And then ultimately, again, business compliance, continuity. But then going to cloud backup, how it works, it transfers the data, it stores the data, then it encrypts it. Some of the advantages: it's offsite, it's scalable, it's accessible by anybody, it's automated. We get that data versioning. But again, the redundancy in there. Again, some of the pros for cloud backups: you just can't beat that. The cost savings, the robot liability, that scalability. The cloud is great for scalability. I think that is one of the biggest benefits of keeping things in the cloud. Is what happens if my business grows and all of a sudden I need to have lots of storage. With cloud, you can grow very, very fast. Kind of some of the cons with cloud backup: loss of control. I don't like that feeling where my data is not here in my location. Some time constraints, data transfer costs. Moving a lot of data. What if I have to move terabytes of data? That could cost a lot of money, a lot of time, as well as there's always that security concern. While these cloud providers offer that security, there's always that cybersecurity thing out there that we need to worry about. So some cloud storage services out there. So just kind of we see there: Google Drive, Amazon Web Services, OneDrive from Microsoft, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, Dropbox. I love using Dropbox. I'm still a heavy user. I've used that forever. The iCloud system, just to name a few. Those are many of the big players out there. IBM, I think, has some stuff too. Really, and like Amazon has a lot of it because Amazon's got this infrastructure out there, so they can rent out a lot of their cloud space to everyone else. Okay, and then getting close to wrapping up here, last little lesson in this lecture today is really about data protection and disposal. So what do we do when we're done with this data and we just want to get rid of it? Simply moving data over to our recycling bin sometimes isn't what we need to do. We need to kind of take some further steps when we're talking about data protection and disposal. So just some data disposal methods. So erasing or overwriting, that's one way to do it. Um, Data is stored as ones and zeros on your drive, right? If you delete those ones and zeros and put some new ones and zeros over that, that's one way to kind of help protect. We're overwriting the data that was there. The new IT techs that have always worked for me have always enjoyed this part. The physical destruction, right? One way to easily make sure that you're not going to be able to get to it is to physically destroy it. So when we're dealing with paper documents, right, we would use that shredder, right, to do that. Well, for technology, sometimes I would just go grab a hammer sometime and just hit it with a hammer. There's also a drill press. Stick a drill bit right through that drive, and it'll make it. Um, Ultimately, things like optical media, CDs, and stuff, they have recommended, and if you ship those off to recycling, a lot of times they will incinerate them. They will stick them in a furnace and just melt them down. So physical destruction is one way to properly dispose. There are services out there. I'm seeing a lot of those now where you can just stick it in a box and mail it to them. Data encryption is another one. We could simply encrypt it and just, well, throw away the key. That's one way that we could delete it. Um, we could do some remote data wiping, if we've got stuff in the cloud, or say if we've got something on a device and the device gets stolen, there is software out there where we can wipe out that data from afar. Let me see here. Some data retention policies, some other methods that we could use, as well as physical media labels, secure storage bins. Where I used to work, there were bins that that where we would throw old flash drives and old hard drives and everything. Digital forensics tools, auditing, all that, some different methods there, as well as mobile device management tools can help us wipe out, say, a fleet of iPads. So that's another way that we can help dispose of data is using something like a mobile, we call them MDMs. So some data privacy regulations. So we need to understand the applicable regulations. We need to maintain a comprehensive inventory of all the data and classify it. So a lot like HIPAA, a lot of those regulations, they require us to do that, as well as have some retention policies and disposal procedures in place. What do we do when we are disposing? What's the proper procedure? As well as documenting and auditing. Employee training is something that, we need to train our employees on the importance of data. I've had to attend many of these training sessions. I've had to conduct many of these training sessions. So we need to train employees on the importance of protection, and ensure that they know the legal and requirements as well as some of the consequences that are related to data destruction. Um, Notification and reporting, some legal consultation and protection impact, as well as legal consultation. Um, Other things, some international data transfers, as well as some protection authorities. We might need to familiarize ourselves with the role of a data protection authority, um, if it happens in our jurisdiction. Let's see here, guys. Wow, I think we have actually, yeah, there's a Kahoot little thing that we've got coming up, but I think we are getting close to wrapping up. So yeah, kind of take a nice little deep breath there. Thank you everybody for sticking with me today on this Friday. So I do appreciate it. So again, let me see. I think one of the staff there, I think you guys are going to bring up the Kahoot here. So um guys, thank you again for kind of sticking with me as we go through this. again, hope you enjoyed kind of the session today. I guess one thing I want to make sure everyone leaves with again is that 3-2-1 mentality. You should have three backups of your data. So maybe think about it right now. Think about maybe your most important picture or most important file that you have. Do you have three backups of it? Um, if you have those three backups, are they on two different types of media? Right? So are these backups on two different types of media? And then lastly, that number one, keep one of your backups off-site or off location. And again, that helps you follow that 3-2-1 method. Okay. Let's see here, guys. Now, bear with me, everybody. It's been a while since I've used Kahoot, and it's been my first time I've used Kahoot in here, so I may need a little assistance here. But I do love using these Kahoots. I always used them in my college classes too, and it's nice to help kind of build engagement here. So let me just make sure.
Yes, we're actually going to give it a couple of seconds just to make
Okay.
sure that more folks are joining, but then we can lock the Kahoot and start the questions.
Okay. Sweet, sweet, sweet.
Right, I want to be mindful of the time, so yeah, we can start.
Let's see. Okay, guys. Looks like we got to select all the benefits of cloud backup. All right. So as we see there, so some of the benefits, those three out of the four: improved scalability, flexible data access, and improved business continuity. It's really not, I mean, there's really no benefit over removable drives. It's not really faster than removable drives. I actually even say that removable drives would be faster than cloud backup, in my opinion, anyway. So nice work, everybody. Oh, nice score. Way to go, Sebastian. I'm not gonna lie, I think I may have missed one too there, guys. I jumped in as well, so I may have missed one too. So, oh, we had a true or false coming up. All single points of failure should be eliminated. What do you guys think? All single points of failure. Yeah, look at that. So, um, obviously on this one, true. We want to remove all those single places where if that device died, uh-oh, something will be very, very bad, right? So we need to remove all those single points of failure. So that one is true there. Let's jump to the next one here. Oh, very nice job, Sebastian. Oh, look at me. I got in there today. Um, nice job again, Sebastian. So we got another true or false. All my data should be incremental backups. So we should always use incremental backups. Let me Oh, so look what we got a little spread here, but and what do you guys think here? So all my data should be incremental. In a way, yeah, I mean that could definitely be true, but it doesn't have to be. So all your data can be a mix of both, or your data could all be full backups. It really just depends a lot on, well, your organization and your organization's data and all that. So false on that one. Your data could be much different. Oh, there we go. Sebastian again. Way to go. And we got a little multi-selection here. What are the two fundamental questions that need to be answered when considering data backups? Two fundamental questions. Let's see. I think I've got an idea here. Winding down there. Get your answers in. All right. So yeah, there we go. Looks like a lot of you got it there. So the two that we're looking for, the two fundamental questions is, well, what is going to be backed up? And then where is it going to get backed up to? The other ones, the maximum amount backed up, I mean, that's good to know, but it's not really a fundamental. And as well as who backs it up, those are kind of details. It's not really the fundamental questions there. So nice work, everybody. On to the next one. Let's see how the scores are going. Oh, look at that there. Nice work, Sebastian. I have another little quiz question. Looks like another multi-select. Select all the reasons that you may want to complete a data restore. Let's see. So I'm gonna see what that is there. So wrapping up here, get your answers in, and yeah, look at that. Those always kind of throw you off when it's everything, right? So, um, some of the reasons that you may want to complete a data, well, data is corrupted, or I like this one. We may just want to test the restore process, right? Or we had a hardware failure, or well, as in the Disney Pixar story, maybe it just got accidentally deleted. So those all four are very good reasons why we may want to do a complete data restore. Nice work, everybody. Let's see where our scores got this time. Oh yeah, nice work. Nice work, Sebastian. Still in the lead there. Question 6 out of 7 here. So what are the benefits of removable media storage? What are the benefits? Looks like you can select more than one here. Doesn't really say if it is more than one, but could be. Let's see what we got here. Oh, so there was two here. So the two benefits are removable media storage, high storage capacity. So going back to my example here, I've got this nice 2 terabyte drive there. So a lot of storage capacity, pretty cheap. And also, that thing's portable. I can just throw it in its case, throw it in my book bag, and I'm off and can travel with it. So high capacity and then portability. Okay, and then last one we've got coming up here. Ooh, drop a pin. Drop a pin on a service you have used. Ooh, fun. Let's see here. Let's, I'm gonna go with that guy right there. So grab onto the picture, kind of move your pin there. So let's see who's I always like seeing these figures too. Which one is the more popular? I kind of have my guess on which one's going to come up to be the most popular here. Oh yeah, look at that. Yep. So right, that's usually Google Drive. Everybody's using Google Drive. We've got a few Dropbox users. I was one of those Dropbox users. OneDrive as well. You know, everyone is a Microsoft user. Microsoft kind of runs the business world still. So a lot of people just kind of use OneDrive just because, well, they're using it in their work as well. So very nice. That's always cool to kind of know there. All right, this is always fun getting to see how things are. So way to go, everybody. Thank you for participating. I appreciate that. Well, guys, and I think with that, everyone, I think that's all I have today. Again, thank you for this opportunity to jump in as a guest lecturer. Very honored to do that, and again, very honored just to see all the people in the meeting on a Friday evening, especially knowing that many of you had work and, well, just a whole week of stuff going on. So, um, I wish you all a very awesome weekend. Hopefully, it's not crazy hot where you are. Um, Again, don't forget, think about backing things up. Just kind of give it a thought. Don't forget that 3, 2, 1. Use that in your personal life and see the importance in your personal life. I think it'll greatly help you because businesses have to do the same thing. That data that's important to you personally, businesses have that important data as well, and that's what makes their businesses move. So again, thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. Fellows out there, friends. Hope to see you again. And again, if you have questions, please reach out to me. I love questions. If I didn't get to a question,